Exposed. The dark urban legends that haunt America at 3 a.m. You won't believe this. The witching hour creeps in quietly, but don't be fooled. At 3 a.m., when the world is still and the shadows loom heavy, something extremely strange stirs. Think about it. The past few years, stories of urban legends have swept through towns like wildfire, sparking fear and intrigue. The figure on the edge of the woods, the whispers in the alley, they're more than tales. They come alive under the moonlight. Who hasn't heard the chilling rumor that if you whisper Bloody Mary into a mirror thrice at this cursed hour, she might just step through? Those who've dared say it, their voices tremble, their eyes dart nervously. Because what if? In the heart of Blackwood Hollow, there's an old, abandoned house that locals swear is home to a specter dressed in white, the weeping bride of a long-lost love. Some claim you can hear her sobs cascading through the air when the clock strikes 3, echoing off the cracked walls. And if you listen closely, really closely, you might just catch her calling for help. Imagine standing in front of that house, feeling a cold chill wrap around your spine, night air heavy with something unexplainable. The kind of night that makes your heart race, and not just from fear. Shadows shift, leaving you wondering who or what might be lurking just out of sight. As the very idea bounces in your mind, the tension escalates. Share a haunted story with friends at a bonfire. Next thing you know, they dare each other, pushing boundaries, coaxing each other to take those first steps into the darkness. A sudden rustle in the bushes sends a jolt of adrenaline through the group. Who's messing around? Or is it something more sinister? People snicker, but it's nervous laughter, each pulse quickening as everyone glances toward the forest's edge. And suddenly, the campfire flickers, the shadows stretch ominously, teasing the idea that they hold secrets of their own. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Now back to the heart-pounding mystery. Just then, a scream shatters the night, piercing and raw. Everyone spins, faces pale, breaths held tight. What was that? Was it a prank? Or something far more dangerous? Tension crackles in the air as the group realizes they've crossed a line. The night isn't just creeping, it's alive with whispers, sights, and things that should remain buried. Someone steps forward, a figure shrouded in whispers and shadows. That's when the real terror sinks in. What if it's not just a legend? The question lingers, hanging thick as fog, begging you to consider the very heart of this unholy hour. What will happen next? What secrets spill out from the darkness, lurking just beyond the trees? As the group huddled together, the confidence they had moments ago evaporated. Their breaths came in quick bursts, and the laughter that had once danced around the fire was replaced by an intense silence. They exchanged glances, each pair of eyes reflecting a mix of fear and uncertainty. The screams still echoed in their minds, sharp and haunting. Maybe it was just an animal, Jake suggested, forcing a laugh that emerged more like a tremor. But deep down, he didn't believe it. No animal sounds like that, Alice replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Her gaze darted to the trees, as if they might reveal their secrets at any moment. As the fire crackled, sending sparks spiraling into the dark sky, a heavy weight settled over them. And then, just as they were about to resume their banter, another noise broke through the stillness, a soft, sorrowful sob that floated through the chilly air. It was almost melodic, resonating with an eerie familiarity. What was that? Sam exclaimed, eyes wide with terror. They all turned towards the sound, hearts pounding in synchrony. The shadows moved again, almost as if alive, warping the edges of the world around them. Guys, this isn't funny, Julie blurted out, her face paler than the moonlight cast upon it. If this is some sort of prank, it's not cool. But just as she finished speaking, The sobbing intensified a desperate, heart-wrenching wail that tugged at their very souls. It pulled them in like a current, insistent and terrifying. The whispers grew louder. "Help, please help," the words, wrapped in an unnatural echo, beckoned them. "What if we check it out?" Alice murmured, the words hanging thick with dread. She didn't want to admit it, but a part of her was drawn to the haunting melody of the cries. "No way!" Jake shouted, suddenly angry. "What you heard was just a trick of the wind. Or maybe someone messing with us." But even he seemed unsure, glancing around nervously. Yet the rest of the group was torn. On one hand, fear bound them together, but on the other, curiosity clawed at their hearts, igniting a spark of reckless bravery. The adrenaline coursed through their veins, urging them forward. "Let us at least look," Sam said, trying to sound brave. "If it's just the bride, it's nothing serious, right?" They slowly stood, pulling the flashlight beams toward the shadowy woodland. Each step felt like stepping closer to a precipice, the ground feeling unstable beneath their feet. The sobbing subsided, replaced by a silence pregnant with danger. "Stick together, all right?" Jake warned, although the group was already inching into the darkness, the haze of uncertainty shrouding them. The trees loomed, tall and whispering, an audience to their fears. As they reached the old house, gnarled branches clawed at their clothes, and the bitter cold seeped into their bones. The front porch creaked, protesting under their weight as they ventured closer to the entrance. The door stood cracked open, an invitation wrapped in shadows. "Guys, are we really doing this?" Julie asked, her voice shaking as she instinctively clutched Sam's arm. But before anyone could answer, the door swung fully open. An icy wind swept through the threshold, carrying with it the unmistakable scent of decay mixed with something sweet, like the taste of forgotten memories. When they all felt it, a presence lurking just beyond the darkness, waiting, watching. The sobs returned, this time more desperate, merging with the sound of rustling leaves as if something was stirring just out of reach. "What if we don't come back?" whispered Alice, the fear clawing at her throat. But even as panic threatened to take hold, the curious part of their hearts pushed them forward. In that moment, they were no longer just a group of friends bored by urban legends. They were players in a deadly game, one that would test the limits of courage and sanity. And as they stood, peering into the abyss of the dark house, one question hung heavily in the air: what awaited them inside, truth or terror? Something shifted behind them. They turned, heartbeats racing, and in that fleeting moment, they realized the legends whispered to life were far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. What was watching them closely from the shadows? Fingers trembling, Alice was the first to take a cautious step across the threshold, the wooden floor creaking ominously under her weight. The air inside was thick, saturated with the smell of mold and something else, something that clawed at the back of her throat. She felt the hesitance of the others as they hung back, staring into the inky blackness of the house, shadows dancing on the edges of their flashlight beams. "Maybe we should turn back," Sam suggested, his voice tight. "This doesn't feel right." But the sobbing had morphed into an almost pleading whimper. "Help me," the voice wrapped around them, a ghostly echo that chilled the marrow of Alice's bones. It resonated with every ounce of longing and pain, pulling her deeper into the darkness. Jake hesitated, steeling himself against the tide of fear threatening to sweep him away. "Come on! We can't just stand here. We're not kids anymore." His bravado felt feeble, but they needed that push. As if in response, the walls shuddered slightly, sending a ripple of apprehension through the group. Alice stepped forward again, her beam of light illuminating broken furniture covered in tattered drapes, remnants of a forgotten past. Each step forward felt like a descent into a world outside their own, a world where nightmares roamed without restraint. Julie scanned the corners of the room, each shadow threatening to spring forth. "We need to stick together," she whispered, gripping Sam's arm tighter, as if trying to drain strength from him. Just then, a loud bang reverberated from upstairs, causing all four of them to jump. The sound echoed off the walls, followed by an unsettling silence that made their hearts pound like war drums. "What was that?" Alice asked, spinning around. Her eyes darted back to Jake, desperate for reassurance, but he seemed just as lost. Without discussing it, they moved slowly toward the darkest part of the hallway, guided only by the flickering beams from their flashlights. Just as they took a step closer to the staircase, the sobbing returned. This time, it was clearer, a distinct sob that morphed into a wail of agony, shattering the heavy silence. "Please come back," it pleaded, the voice weaving its way into their minds, a shiver of familiarity prickling their skins. Was that the voice of the bride from the tales? Or something far more sinister, waiting to reveal its true nature? Alice, almost instinctively, stepped into the room to the left, where the wailing seemed to cascade from. In the flickering light, she caught sight of something moving, a figure, curled and shivering in the dark, face hidden by cascading hair. "Is anyone there?" Alice asked, dread pooling in her stomach. The figure didn't respond but simply shifted, and a glint of silver caught the beam of her flashlight, a wedding ring, caked in dirt. "Guys, come here," she urged, but her voice trembled, an edge of fear causing it to crack. One by one, her friends trickled into the room, their breaths hitching as they beheld the sight before them. It was a young woman, ghostly white, sobbing into her hands, her presence both sorrowful and menacing. What do you want?" Jake stammered, backing towards the door, but it was too late. The oppressive air in the room thickened, the whispers surrounding them growing louder, demanding, and then, the figure lifted her head, revealing hollow, despairing eyes that bore into each of their souls. "You shouldn't have come here," her voice, once yearning, turned sinister. "Now you'll never leave." In that instant, the door slammed shut behind them, leaving them trapped in a suffocating room filled with echoes of their own dread. Panic surged through their veins, heartbeats racing as they attempted to process what was happening, the unexplained terror taking shape before them. "Run!" Sam shouted, as the figure lunged forward, her arms outstretched like a twisted shadow reaching for the warmth of the living. But as they scrambled for the door, they began to realize it wasn't just her they had to escape. What other horrors lay in waiting within the shadows? The room felt like it was closing in on them, the air electric with dread. Alice's heart pounded against her chest, a frantic drum echoing in the pulsating silence. The wailing figure advanced, her gaunt face twisting into something grotesque, hatred mingled with sorrow. It was as if she drew energy from their fear. "Move! Now!" Jake urged, yanking Alice's arm, but she felt frozen in place, eyes locked on the specter. The figure's wretched expression morphed into a spreading smile, a maw of darkness that seemed to consume the small beam of hope left in the cramped space. Sam and Julie bolted towards the door, flinging themselves against it. It remained stubbornly shut, a barrier sealing their fate. "What do we do?" Julie cried, panic wrapping its fingers around her throat. "Try pushing," Sam shouted, fear lending urgency to his words. They heaved against the door, but it held firm, as if it relished their struggle. All the while, the figure drew closer, a ghostly apparition drifting with an otherworldly speed. Alice turned to face her friends, adrenaline surging. "The window! We have to get to the window!" She dashed toward the far side of the room, each step echoing with that chilling sobbing no. It was a symphony of suffering now, demanding acknowledgement. The shuddering floorboards beneath them were like a living pulse, each creak a warning. Jake swallowed hard, sprinting behind Alice as they headed for the soot-stained glass. Julie and Sam glanced desperately around, the wailing figure now mere feet away, arms outstretched like vine-like tendrils grasping for warmth. "Push it open!" Sam screamed at Alice, his face pale. She fumbled with the window latch, hands shaking, sweat beading on her brow. Suddenly, the figure halted, her voice echoing through the room like a banshee's wail. "You cannot escape me. You will be mine forever." Alice's breath hitched. The words wrapped around her skin, squeezing, tugging at the edges of her sanity. With one final effort, she jimmied the window open, the ancient frame groaning in protest. The acrid smell of stagnant air flooded her senses as she surveyed the drop below. "Go! I'll hold her off," Jake yelled, taking a defensive stance between them and the encroaching figure. "No! We can't leave you!" Alice protested, torn between courage and fear. "Just go!" His voice shattered with determination, and something in her chest wanted to believe him, to trust that they would see each other again. With no time for hesitation, Alice clambered through the window, the jagged edge biting into her skin. Sam and Julie followed, their panicked breaths all mingling in the chaos of their escape. As Alice landed outside, she looked back and saw Jake still standing there, shadows swirling around him. The apparition leaped, but his defiance held firm, even in the face of her looming darkness. "Get out of here!" he yelled, the words bursting forth like a lifeline. They sprinted away from the house, a maze of terror behind them, but as they reached the edge of the property, Alice dared to glance back. The house loomed, alive and grotesque, glowing beneath the moonlight, its windows like empty eyes watching them leave. "Is he going to be okay?" Sam asked, panic mingling with desperation as they huddled together under the harsh lamp of light. "I don't know," Alice replied, her voice trembling. But something in her gut told her the horror wasn't finished. Just then, a horrible realization dawned on her. What if we didn't just bring it out with us? What if it's still inside us? Silence overtook them, the weight of her words heavy in the frigid night air. And in that terrible moment, Alice felt a cold shiver crawl down her spine, an unsettling sense of dread that this wasn't over. As they stood gathering their breath, a faint sound emerged from the depths of the darkness. A whisper, threading through the trees, a promise, a threat. "You can't escape. You belong to me now." The chill washed over them, a foreboding of what was to come. Alice knew they must confront the horror that lingered, but first they had to discover what they had unleashed, what darkness lurked now, and how could they fight something that seemed to haunt them from within. The night air was thick with a chilling stillness, as if the very world was holding its breath. Alice's heart raced, the rhythmic thudding a desperate beat against the ominous silence. Sam and Julie stared at her, their eyes wide and flickering with panic. The shadows seemed to swell around them, creeping closer like a predator stalking its prey. "We need to move," Alice urged, her voice barely above a whisper, tremors lacing each word. "We can't stay here." But the weight of her earlier realization pressed down like a vice. It felt like they were already trapped. "Keep running!" Sam shouted, breaking their trance. He gestured down the path that snaked away from the house, the trees looming like dark sentinels. "The road is just ahead." They sprinted, branches snagging at their clothes, reaching for them like the very hands of the specter they thought they'd left behind. Behind them, a rustling echoed through the darkness, sending fresh jolts of fear coursing through Alice's veins. "Do you think it followed us?" Julie's voice trembled as she ran, glancing nervously over her shoulder. Each step felt like a race against time, a clock winding tighter. "It has to be," Alice replied, desperation rising like bile in her throat. "We should have never gone in that house." Suddenly, they rounded a corner and saw a light flickering in the distance, a small beacon that started to beckon them forward. "There!" Sam cried, pointing. "We can reach that. It might be a shelter." They pushed on, adrenaline fueling their legs. The flickering light grew brighter, warmer against the oppressive darkness. As they drew closer, the beam revealed itself as a welcoming sight: an old gas station, its rusty sign creaking in the wind like the groans of the dearly departed. They raced through the cracked parking lot, the sharp gravel digging into their sneakers. Inside they found a jumble of old candy bars, dusty soda bottles, and an ancient cash register. Alice felt unsteady. This was hardly a sanctuary, but it was better than the void outside. "Barricade the door," she ordered, her voice trembling with urgency. Sam and Julie hurried to push against the entrance, the door rattling on its hinges. Alice sank against the counter, breathless. As the door was secured, they caught their breath, glancing around nervously. Silence pressed in. The gas station felt odd, almost suffocating. "What if it's still with us?" Julie whispered, fear dripping from her voice. "Shh!" Alice snapped, as if the mere mention of it might invoke its return. Then she felt it, a chill creeping under her skin. A rustling noise emanated from the back room. "Did you hear that?" Sam's eyes widened, fear flaring anew. "Maybe it's just the wind," Alice suggested, but the shaky edge to her voice betrayed her. The rustling grew louder, sharper. It seemed to thrum with purpose. Alice's instincts screamed at her to flee, but she stood frozen, staring into the darkened hallway that stretched beyond the flickering light. Suddenly, a low, mournful sound echoed from the shadows, almost like the figure's wail from the house, a haunting, desperate cry that seeped into her bones. "No, it can't be," she gasped, backing away, a cold wave of dread washing over her. "Run!" Sam shouted, snapping Alice back to reality. They turned, but before they could make a full escape, the lights flickered violently, plunging them into inky darkness. Panic flooded their senses. "What is happening?" Julie shrieked, as they groped blindly. The mournful cry shrieked through the darkness, a sound of anguish, anger, and a deep, invasive sorrow. Alice felt something brush past her, cold and ephemeral, a fleeting shadow. She gasped, teeth clenched as terror surged. "Get out! Get out now!" she cried, her voice raw with urgency. As if in response, the door burst open, a cold wind sweeping through. The shadows surged forward, a maw of darkness threatening to engulf them. Their breaths intertwined in fear. The door quivered, the shadows writhing. In that moment, Alice realized they were not just facing an external horror, but something deep within their spirits, a latent darkness now awakened. Could they ever escape the shadow that followed them? Or had they indeed become vessels for something far more sinister? And in the fraught silence, a voice echoed in Alice's mind, a whisper that promised, "You can't hide from me, I will find you." What had they truly awakened, and could they defy the darkness that lurked within? The darkness swallowed them whole, an unyielding abyss where time seemed to freeze. Heartbeats pounded loudly in Alice's ears, each thump a countdown to impending dread. She grasped at the memory of fleeing from that haunting cry, desperate to focus on anything other than the creeping horror consuming the gas station. "Where's the light?" Julie's voice trembled, barely a whisper. The tremors of fear rippled through her. "Just a second," Sam stuttered, fumbling in his pockets, his breath quickening. "My phone, I need my phone." The panic in his voice sparked an urgency. What if they couldn't see what lurked in the pitch black? Alice felt around her, frantic. The air was thick, stale with fear, and something more pungent in odor making her stomach churn. "Get the door! We can't lose it!" she urged breathlessly, though the rational part of her knew running wouldn't help. They might just end up back at the house. "Found it!" Sam's voice sliced through the silence as a beam of light pierced the gloom, illuminating their surroundings. The gas station was decrepit, peeling wallpaper, sunken shelves, and a broken fridge humming eerily in the corner. Yet, it was the door that held all their attention, the one they had barricaded moments ago. "What is happening?" Julie's voice quivered, eyes darting around. But Alice's gaze was fixed on that door. It was twitching, like something was trying to push back against their barricade. "We have to hold it!" Alice shouted, moving instinctively toward it. Sam and Julie rushed to her side, hands bracing against the old wood that shook with increasing intensity. "Maybe it's just the wind," Sam started, but his face turned ghostly pale when the low wail surged again, erupting from the shadows beyond the door, a banshee-esque cry, raw and writhing, filled with an unholy rage. "It's not the wind!" Alice screamed, feeling the weight of dread settle heavy in her stomach. In that moment, she could see it, a dark shape, shifting and swirling around the edges of the beam of light, a mass of shadowy despair reaching for them. "Get back!" Julie shouted, stepping away, but Alice felt rooted. She couldn't tear her gaze from the doorway, where something dark clawed at their sanctuary. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on, fluttering wildly before steadying. The sound stopped. The shadows retreated. Silence crawled back in, unsettling in its depths. We need to go," Sam whispered, stepping backwards. But as Alice turned to follow, panic seized her. "No!" Her voice broke. "What if it's waiting?" But Julie was already moving, stumbling toward the back exit. "There's gotta be another way out," she cried, eyes wide with fear. "We can't stay here." Without thought, Alice grabbed Sam's arm. "We have to stick together. We can't split up." Tension crackled like static around them, as they edged toward the back room. With each step, the air felt heavier, almost electric, as if the darkness itself pressed against them, hungry to engulf them. They pushed through the door at the other end. The small room revealed boxes piled high, forgotten relics of another time, old tires, a rusty oil drum, forgotten relics almost breathing nostalgia. And then, they spotted it, a tiny window, just above head height, grime-streaked but a potential escape route. "Help me up!" Sam shouted, urgency brightening his voice. As he climbed, Alice pressed against the walls, heart racing. Suddenly, the mournful cry erupted again from the gas station, echoing off the walls, chasing them into the tight space. "Faster!" Sam shouted, halfway through the window. "It's coming!" With a desperate push, Alice shoved Julie towards Sam as she pressed her back against the door. "No!" she yelled, when the door rattled violently again. "Don't let it in!" The window glinted with promise, but all Alice could feel was the dread creeping in around the edges of her mind. Were their fears justified, or had they tapped into something that was never meant to be unearthed? But through the chaos, one thought clawed its way to the forefront of Alice's mind. What if they were not just running from something sinister, but rather they were running toward it? And in that suspended moment, they realized, the horrors might not just be waiting outside, they might be waking up within. Alice's heart raced as the door trembled under the onslaught, a raw echo of terror coursing through her veins. The sound of moaning grew louder, an unsettling dirge, each note piercing through her resolve. "We can't waste any more time!" she yelled, pushing Julie towards the window. "Go!" "Wait, hold on!" Julie screamed, her voice shaky, filled with desperation and fear. But Alice was already behind Sam, who barely fit halfway through the narrow space. Shadows swirled around them, reaching, grasping, as if the darkness itself had come alive. "Push me!" Sam urged, struggling but making no progress. "Just push harder." "I'm trying!" Julie shouted, her fear evident and palpable. The door shook violently again, a deafening crack that sent shivers deep in Alice's bones. Each reverberation felt like a countdown, a sinister promise that they were not alone. "Come on, push!" Alice yelled, adrenaline surging through her. They had to get out, had to escape this nightmare. Sweat dripped down her back as she planted her hands on Sam's backside, shoving with all her might. With one final heave, Sam tumbled through the window, rolling onto the ground outside. "I got it! I'm out!" he shouted, suddenly wrapped up in the moonlit night. "Now you, Julie!" Alice turned, desperation clawing at her throat. "Hurry!" But Julie was frozen, eyes darting to the door, her breath coming in panicked gasps. What if it gets in? Tears glimmered in her gaze, and Alice's heart twisted. "It won't. Just jump!" Alice shouted, but the shadows flickered, lurching closer. The doors would creaked under a force they couldn't comprehend, the air growing thicker, heavy with dread, and then silence. They all froze, panic cascading down Alice's spine. The door halted still. Could it sense them? Alice didn't blink, gripping the edge of the frame, nerves strained as every instinct screamed at her to run. "Julie, now! Please!" With a sharp intake of breath, Julie flung herself forward, wedging her body through the window just as the door creaked again, a slow, agonizing sound as if it was testing the limits of their makeshift barricade. As Julie's arms slipped through the opening, Alice felt relief flooding her. She pulled with all her strength, pulling her closer. But just then a horrific bang reverberated from behind them, filled with a primal rage. Something dark surged against the door, like it was trying to claw its way free, furious to be contained. "Go!" Alice yelled, shoving Julie out far enough for her to tumble into the dark. She hesitated, fighting a rush of doubt, and then gripped the edge of the window, preparing to follow. But the walls shuddered, shadows closing in on her. "Alice!" Julie screamed from outside, panic propelling her voice. "You can't stay!" In the chaos, Alice hesitated, looking back, and that's when she saw it, a reflection in the flickering lights. Something tall, indistinct, slithering through the darkness, its form blotting out the very fabric of reality. The air turned colder, a bitter reminder of the malevolence tied to this place. Jump! Sam's voice pierced through the muffled terror. In that moment, Alice felt the world tilt. She pushed off with everything she had, her body flying through the opening, joining Sam and Julie in the night. They crashed into the blunted grass, a jumbled heap of terrified breaths, and before she could catch her breath, they scrambled to their feet. "Run!" Alice exclaimed, adrenaline blazing. But as they turned to flee, they realized the path ahead twisted darkly into the woods, an uninviting invitation into the unknown. Something rustled behind them, low and sinister, a whisper of the darkness they had just escaped. Was it truly out? Or had it merely been waiting hunting? As fear grasped each of them, hesitation took form. Could they vanish into that which welcomed them but ignored their cries seeking escape? In the silence, the woods seemed to twist, mischievously inviting, humans trespassing in their longing to flee, or even worse, wanting to confront whatever waited within. And in that split second, Alice knew they were not simply fleeing a darkness. They were stepping deeper into abyssal shadows that would forever change them. "What do we do now?" Julie breathed, terror glazing her azure eyes. As a chilling wind rustled the leaves above, they heard it, a whisper echoing through the trees, promising that this was only the beginning. "What if running wasn't enough?" Sam murmured, his voice trailing off into the looming fog, and as the cold crept in, reality blurred, framing the question in their minds: what awaited them in those woods, and would they ever truly be free again? The woods swallowed them whole, the trees looming like ancient sentinels, and the air thick with a growing dread. Each step they took seemed to echo, the crunching leaves underfoot mocking their fragility in the face of the encroaching darkness. "I can't see anything," Julie whispered, her breath hitching in her throat, panic weaving between her words. "It's just the shadows." "Keep moving," Alice replied, her voice steadier than she felt. They had to keep moving. The last thing they needed was to be trapped here, exposed to whatever had been lurking behind that door. Yet, the deeper they wandered, the more the woods seemed to shift. The trees reached out with twisted branches, their silhouettes morphing grotesquely against the pale moonlight, as if alive, watching, and waiting. Alice could feel it, a lurking presence, an electricity crackling in the air, a silent menace trailing just beyond their sight. "Wait!" Sam halted suddenly, glancing back over his shoulder, eyes wide with fear. "What?" Julie asked, her voice trembling, each word as fragile as her composure. "Do you hear that?" he asked. The air fell heavy again, the rustling leaves ceased, and they strained to listen against the suffocating silence. It was there, a soft, almost imperceptible sound, a low, haunting giggle that echoed through the trees, like someone playing a cruel game. Alice's heart thudded painfully in her chest, the sound chilling her blood. What the hell was that? She breathed, looking between her friends, their faces ghostly in the dim light. Before they could respond, the giggle morphed into a cacophony of whispers, dozens of voices intertwining, secrets snaked through the trees, slithering into their minds. "Run," Sam urged, his voice urgent. They all took off again, the adrenaline pushing them forward, even as terror gripped their hearts. But the path twisted, shifting unpredictably like the thoughts racing in Alice's mind, her fear mounting with every footfall. The shadows deepened, wrapping around them, growing more substantial. It felt like the very fabric of reality was unraveling with each stride they took. "What if we should have stayed back there?" Julie shouted, her voice rising above the panicked breaths of the others. "What if it's worse out here? Better than whatever was behind us?" Alice snapped back, the heat of panic stirring her defenses. They had to keep moving. There had to be some kind of safe haven ahead, a light at the end of this suffocating tunnel. Just as hope flickered in her heart, they stumbled into a clearing. The moon shone brightly here, illuminating a strange old shrine covered in vines and eerily pulsating with energy. It looked abandoned, but the air hummed with a sense of purpose. "What is this place?" Sam muttered, glancing around frantically. Before Alice could answer, the whispers intensified, spiraling into a frenzy around them. The voices turned guttural and harsh, blurring into words she couldn't decipher. The shadows seemed to coalesce into figures, dark shapes gathering at the edges of the clearing, creeping closer, limbs stretching unnaturally. "Stay together!" Alice yelled, her instincts firing as she grabbed Julie's arm. The figures advanced, dragging their tendrils of shadow through the moonlit ground, creeping ever closer, shadows of nightmares threatening to engulf them. A sudden chill seized her, and Alice fought against the rising tide of terror. They had to confront this together, or they'd be consumed. As the sound of the whispers surged louder, drowning out her thoughts, time froze. Sam suddenly raised his voice. "Wait! What if they're trying to communicate?" "Communicate?" Julie echoed, shock lining her words. "With who?" Alice's breath caught in her throat. She could almost see their faces seeping through the darkness, a legion of lost souls, remnants of pain longing to connect. What were these shadows? Were they trapped here? Or were they guardians, safeguarding more than just themselves? But just as clarity flickered like a candle in the tempest, one figure stepped forward from the shadows, taller than the rest, whose eyes gleamed with an unsettling light, locking onto Alice. "What do you seek?" it hissed, its voice both chilling and enticing. The question hung in the air, heavy and taunting. As they stepped closer together, each of them clinging to the thin thread of hope that brought them this far, Alice's thoughts raced back to their frantic escape. What were they truly hoping to find? Now, the looming darkness wasn't just a barrier, but something that might reveal the truth lurking within. As the moonlight flickered around them, Alice knew a reckoning was near, and every choice they'd made was about to collide with the echoes of their fears. "Tell us!" Alice called out, her voice steady against the overwhelming dread. "What do you want from us?" But the shadow simply tilted its head, a twisted smile emerging from the darkness, just as the whispers swelled to a deafening roar, drowning out everything else. "Answers or chaos?" It seemed to mock her, leaving Alice questioning what they would choose next. And as the darkness shifted and threatened to consume them, a single thought pounded through her mind: were they ready to face what lay ahead? Alice's heart raced, pounding so loud in her chest that she thought it might drown out the whispers. Shadows twisted like vines, creeping around her legs as she struggled to find her voice amidst the chaos. "What do you mean, answers or chaos?" Sam shouted, fear lacing his tone. His wide eyes darted from the figure to the encroaching darkness. The shadow's smile widened, almost gleeful. "You stand on sacred ground," it hissed. "A threshold between worlds, yours and theirs." As the words washed over Alice, she felt a weight settle deep within her stomach, as if the air itself had turned toxic. She squeezed Julie's hand tightly, feeling the heat radiate from her friend's skin. "Keep her grounded, whatever it takes." "What do you want from us?" Alice demanded again, her voice lower yet unwavering. The figure's eyes shimmered with what looked like ancient wisdom mixed with something darker. "To know. To remember. Others have come, forgotten their tales, and now their souls wander, lost. Maybe you can give them what they need." Beneath her feet, the ground trembled softly, pulsating with an energy that felt simultaneously alive and dead. The whispers grew insistent, wrapping around her like a noose tightening with each beat of her heart. She glanced at Sam and Julie, their faces etched with equal parts fear and curiosity. Did they understand what this meant? "What kind of tales?" Sam challenged, trying to shift the focus from the fear to something tangible, something they could grasp in the overwhelming darkness. "Secrets long buried, grief, betrayal, love, the very essence of humanity haunts these woods. What will you share to appease their restless souls?" Alice's mind raced back to the stories her grandmother told her as a child. The ghostly figures lurking in the woods, lost loves, unfinished business. What if there was a thread of truth woven into those childhood tales? "They want us to tell their stories?" Julie asked, voice trembling. "But what if it only makes things worse?" Doubt crept into her words. "Better to face the darkness now than to be haunted by it forever," Alice pressed, her resolve solidifying. They needed to dive into this murky past, to understand what these shadows wanted. "Let us hear them." Alice stepped forward, her voice cutting through the whispers. "Tell us what you need." A wave of silence washed over the clearing. The shadows paused, as if waiting. Slowly, the figures began to condense around them, their forms distorting, and faces, once indistinguishable, flickered into view. Each a story and each reflecting fragments of their pain. "You offer your ears, your heart," the tall shadow whispered. "But be warned. Not all tales bear sweet endings." Before Alice could respond, a figure darted past her, a girl, no older than 10, her face streaked with tears, and that overwhelming sadness echoed clearly in Alice's mind. "What do you seek?" The child's voice broke through the cold air, pulling Alice back into her own memories, a time when she too felt lost. "How did you end up here?" Alice whispered, struggling to keep her fear at bay. The girl's eyes widened. "I forgot where I belong. I forgot my story." Suddenly, the wind howled through the trees, a chilling reminder of the night they had stumbled into this world of shadowy whispers. The energy shifted. It felt as if the forest itself breathed in deeply, ready to release a storm of secrets. Each shadowy figure leaned closer, their collective longing palpable. "Can you help us remember?" they pleaded, a chorus of sorrow that made Alice's entire body tremble. Not just echoes, they were memories. Outside the clearing, branches snapped ominously, darkness swelling like a rising tide. "What happens if we don't?" Julie whispered, gripping Alice tightly, her face pale against the backdrop of swirling shadows. "Only chaos," the tall figure hissed, eyes glowing like embers. And before she knew it, Alice felt time slipping away as the stakes grew higher with each passing second. "No more running," she pledged, her heart firming. They had to confront whatever lay ahead, even if it meant sharing their own truths, their own stories, and risking everything. As the wind whipped stronger, drowning out the murmurs, a question hung heavy in the air: would Alice and her friends courageously reclaim the forgotten tales, or would the shadows weave their own chaotic narrative, consuming them whole? The forest groaned, and in an electrical surge of anticipation, Alice realized they were standing at the precipice, one wrong move away from irretrievable chaos. With a single, heavy breath, she stepped forward, hands trembling but resolute. "Then let's remember." What would they uncover when they dared to listen? The soil beneath Alice's feet felt ancient, alive, and charged with energy, as if the very ground was staving off some long-buried truth. Her heart pounded, each thump echoing the urgency of the moment. "Let us remember," she repeated, resolute, as silence enveloped them once more. Around her, shadows shifted and murmured amongst themselves, the air thick with anticipation. The figures began to coalesce again, focusing their energy into stories that yearned to be told. A chill rushed through Alice, but she couldn't back down now. She sensed that within each dark form lay a fragment of what's lost, a touch of their pain requiring resolution. "Start with us," Sam urged, stepping forward slightly. He too felt the gravity of this haunting moment, the weight of expectation pressing on their shoulders. The tall shadow inclined its head, considering. An older figure came forth, its edges wavering like smoke against the moonlit backdrop. "I was a lover, abandoned and forgotten, left waiting as the years slipped through my fingers like sand. My heart shattered beneath an ancient oak each full moon, and it bled with cries no one heard." With each word, the shadows pulsed around them, vibrant with emotion and aching loss. "Please," Julie whispered, her voice softer now, compelling. "Tell us what we need to know." The figure's form solidified, features becoming distinctly human, a tormented soul. "To release me, you must understand love's cruel hand. What binds us, what breaks us?" The shadows swirled in a whirlwind of sorrow, revealing fleeting memories glimpsed through the reflection of hollow eyes. They watched, mesmerized, often mouthing silent words of understanding. Alice's thoughts raced. "What happened? Why do you linger here?" she asked, her heart channeling strength to unravel their pain. The figure's face twisted, spilling secrets. "I waited for him decades beyond his end. His promise lingered like the fog, leaving me shackled to hopelessness." As the figure recounted memories, Alice felt the chill of recognition, a story echoing in the depths of her heart. A warning against the numbness of love lost. "What can we do to help you?" Sam urged, his voice steady but fragile. "Remember for us. Tell our stories before the dawn breaks, or we will fade into nothingness. The world must know." A pulsing wave of emotion swept through the air, igniting courage in Alice. "We'll carry your tales, I promise." Just then, the shadows surged closer, the air thickening with emotion. The figures emerged more distinctly, each bearing their unique burden. "Without our stories, we're forgotten," the tall shadow explained, urgency lacing its tone. "Time grows thin. The sun will soon rise." Alice felt desperation swell inside her. "What do we do?" "Share your fears. Your loves. The turmoil of your hearts," another shadow whispered, a young woman, her voice sweet. "In doing so, we may find freedom, and in turn yours." Julie stepped up, emotions propelling her words. "I once felt lost in my own expectations, buried under supposed perfection. Fear held me back from embracing vulnerability." The shadow women around them stirred, echoing both sorrow and hope. Alice nodded, feeling their spectral energy spark as Julie unveiled her fears. A sense of understanding finessed the atmosphere as if the figures listened intently, filling the density with warmth that only truths can create. Then, it was Sam's turn. "I've lived half my life running from what I love," he shared, drawing breath slowly but steadily. "Hiding from the connections that scare me most. But it only led me to darkness like all of you." They felt the collective soul shudder, shadows mingling in resonance with their words finding a flicker of hope. Alice's heart thumped louder. "I have to say this, it scares me. I don't want to be my mother's shadow. I want to create a world where fear doesn't dictate my life. I want to live fully, with no regrets." A frigid gust swept through the clearing, swirling like a tempest, lifting the shadows in a dance of unity. Alice felt exhilaration surge. She had shared her truth, her sincerity. Sparked the connection, intertwining their journey into one. The figures coalesced, swaying like wind through trees, beams of hope igniting their souls. "We see you," the elder shadow whispered, a hint of joy brushing across its spectral lips. "You were willing to face pain, to embrace life amidst hardship. You understood. The night must give way to daylight." A cacophony of whispers rose around them, spilling secrets below silver moonlight. The darkness around shrank, flickering like dying embers. "Now," echoed the collective shadows, "you have given us breath, and in turn freed yourselves. Once light breaks, we will vanish like smoke into myths and dreams." A deep rumbling filled the air, a sign of shifting. The weight of shadow's pressure began to dissipate. Alice, Sam, and Julie stepped together, feeling lighter but aware of the lingering weight their truths bore. "Will we meet again?" Alice called, searching through the fading mist. "Remember us," came the soft response in fading echoes. "As long as you hold on to our stories, our shadows will linger in every tale you weave." In the final moments, light broke through the trees, the moon faded softly as dawn washed over the clearing. Each shadow danced gracefully, melding with the golden rays, their forms fading into the dawn of new stories. As the light touched Alice's face, she felt the warmth, a promise of rebirth. With breaths of relief mingled with wonder, the trio stepped out into the light. "Are we free?" Julie asked cautiously. "Yeah, I think we are," Sam replied, a newfound strength coursing through him. Alice grinned softly. "Let us never forget what we witnessed. But let us also not live in fear anymore. The shadows taught us something vital." They exchanged determined smiles, weaving dreams of triumph ahead, stories waiting to be written anew. As they left the woods, hearts abloom with new possibility, a whisper lingered in the air, a gentle reminder that darkness may return, but equally, courage was there to guide them. And though shadows might blend with dawn, they now walked armed with stories that bound them together, eternal, resilient, and casting light through even the darkest nights. Now it's your turn. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories full of surprises and chills. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep these amazing tales coming your way, and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending because I want to hear from you, true fans. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support makes all the difference.